A werewolf romance audiobook written by Joyce Meyer. The scar on my throat should have killed me. 3 jagged lines, silver white against my skin, running from jaw to collarbone. My brother's claws had been merciful, quick, brutal, meant to end it fast, but Mercy and I have never been on speaking terms. I survived. And in the Thornridge Pack, survival without permission is the worst crime of all. My name is Karis Ashwin, and I am the wolf nobody wanted. Not at birth, when my mother bled out bringing me into this world. Not at 7, when my shift came wrong and left me broken. Not at 16, when I challenged for a rank I'd never earn. And certainly not now, at 23, when I should be grateful to scrub floors in the pack house, while wolves half my strength hold titles I'll never touch. They call me Leah, the weary one, the cursed one, the one who tries too hard and fails harder. But there's a secret burning in my blood, hot as the wolf that claws beneath my ribs. I wasn't born cursed. I was born marked. And tonight, under a moon fat and bleeding red, everything I've suffered, every beating, every humiliation, every year of being invisible, is about to make terrible, beautiful sense. Prologue, 17 years ago. The night of 2 births. Rain hammered the tin roof of the pack healer's cabin, each drop a bullet of sound that couldn't drown out the screaming. "She's losing too much blood!" Healer Marin's voice cracked with panic, her hands slick and red as she worked between Alara Ashwin's legs. "The pup's positioned wrong. I need to turn it. Just get it out!" Alpha Ronin's command boomed through the small cabin, his massive form filling the doorway. Behind him, the pack pressed close, drawn by the scent of blood and the ancient pull of new life entering the world. But there was something else in the air. Something wrong. Alara Ashwin had been laboring for 19 hours. The autumn moon had risen and set, and risen again, and still the child would not come. Her mate, Delta Marcus, knelt beside her, his face gray with fear, his hand crushed in her grip. "I see it," Marin's voice lifted with desperate hope. "I see..." The baby came in a rush of blood and fluid and something else. Something that made every wolf in proximity freeze, nostrils flaring. Power. Raw, unfocused, ancient power that rolled off the newborn in waves, making the cabin's wooden walls groan, and the flame in the hearth gutter and flare green. "It's a girl," Marin whispered, and there was something like dread in her voice. The baby didn't cry. She opened her eyes. Impossible, newborns didn't open their eyes. And they were gold. Not the amber gold of pack wolves, but true gold, the color of coins and crowns, and things divine. They swirled with light, with something vast and incomprehensible, and when the baby's gaze fixed on Alpha Ronin, the most powerful wolf in 3 territories took an involuntary step backward. Then the child whimpered, and the power vanished like smoke. "Alara?" Marcus's voice broke. "Alara, love, look at our daughter." But Alara Ashwin was staring at the ceiling with empty eyes, her last breath rattling out between blue lips. The baby began to scream. Marin cleaned the child with shaking hands, wrapped her in wool, tried to hand her to Marcus. But the Delta turned his face away, his whole body rigid with grief and something darker. "She killed her," he said flatly. "My mate is dead, and that thing took her from me." "Marcus, no." Marin started, but Alpha Ronin's hand fell heavy on her shoulder. "The child lives," Ronin said, his voice neutral, careful. "She will be raised pack, but..." He paused, studying the now ordinary infant with narrowed eyes. "There will be no favoritism, no special treatment. She is Delta's daughter in name only. Let her earn her place, if she can." It was a political sentence, a way to acknowledge the child, without granting her the protection her bloodline should have guaranteed. And everyone in that room understood what it meant. The cursed child would carry her mother's death like a chain around her neck for the rest of her life. Marcus Ashwin walked out of the cabin and didn't look back. In his arms, Marin cradled the baby girl who had no name yet, no mother's love, no father's claim. Just those strange gold eyes that had already faded to a muddy brown, as if that moment of impossible power had been nothing but a fever dream. "What do we call her?" someone asked. Marin looked down at the child, at the small fists curled tight, at the face already screwing up for another wail of loss and rage and hunger. "Karis," she said softly. "It means fate, or death. Let her decide which one she'll be." The baby screamed louder, and outside lightning split the sky. Chapter 1. The Invisible Wolf. The first rule of being unmated and unranked in the Thornridge Pack. Keep your head down. The second rule, keep your mouth shut. The third rule, the one that's kept me alive this long, when they hit you, stay down. I've gotten good at rules 1 and 2. Rule 3 is harder. "Karis!" Thalia's voice cracked through the pack house kitchen like a whip. "These floors won't clean themselves, and Alpha Cade's returning tonight. Everything must be perfect." I didn't look up from the pot I was scrubbing, my knuckles raw from the harsh soap and cold water. Yes, Beta Thalia. Beta. The title still tasted wrong, even after 3 years. Thalia had been 17 when she'd challenged for the position, the same age I'd been when I challenged and lost. But where I'd been thrown across the ring and broken in 3 places, Thalia had won with vicious grace, earning her rank and her father's approval in one blood-soaked afternoon. Now she wore her title like a crown, and her cruelty like perfume. "And make sure you stay out of sight during the welcome ceremony," Thalia continued, her designer heels clicking against the stone floor as she circled me. "The Alpha doesn't need to see pack trash during his homecoming." Pack trash. Just one of 24 names they had for me. Cursed One, Mother Killer, Broken Wolf, Leah. That last one hurt most, because it was truest. In the old Hebrew tongue, Leah meant weary, and I was so bone-tired I could barely remember what it felt like to stand without pain. "Yes, Beta," I repeated, keeping my voice neutral, my eyes down. Thalia's hand shot out, fingers tangling in my dark hair, yanking my head back. I gasped but didn't struggle. Struggling only made it worse. "Look at me when I speak to you," she hissed, her breath hot against my cheek. Her wolf was right there, pushing against her eyes, turning them amber with barely contained violence. "You're pathetic. 23 years old and you still haven't learned your place." I met her gaze, careful to keep my expression blank. Empty. "I know my place, Beta." "Do you?" Her smile was all teeth. "Because from where I'm standing, you look like you think you're equal to real wolves, like you have any right to—" "Thalia." The voice from the doorway was male, bored, dangerous. "Playing with the help again?" My brother. Technically half-brother, though he'd never claimed even that much connection. Darius Ashwin, 26 years old, tall and golden, and powerful in ways I would never be. Our father's favorite. The son who'd been born from his second mate, the one he'd chosen after my mother bled out. Thalia released me immediately, straightening, smoothing her skirt. "Darius, I was just ensuring the pack house would be presentable for Alpha Cade's return." "By terrorizing Karis?" Darius's dark eyes found mine, and I hated the pity I saw there. Pity was worse than hatred. At least hatred acknowledged you were worth the energy. Let her work. Father wants everything perfect, and she's the only one who actually cleans worth a damn. It wasn't a compliment. Just fact, delivered in the flat tone Darius used for everything involving me. As if I were a tool, a thing to be used and put away. Thalia sniffed but stepped back, her heels clicking as she left. The kitchen felt larger without her venom filling the space. I expected Darius to leave too. He usually did, uncomfortable with my existence in a way that made him avoid me entirely. But today he lingered, leaning against the doorframe, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. "You're limping," he finally said. I wasn't. I'd gotten very good at hiding the pain in my left hip. The joint that had never quite healed right after my shift went wrong at 7 years old. But Darius had always been observant. "I'm fine," I said, returning to the dishes. "Karis." His voice dropped, losing its edge. "When was the last time you saw Healer Marin?" "I don't need a healer." You need something. He pushed off the doorframe, took 3 steps toward me, close enough that I could smell him, pine and steel and pack bond, that scent that marked him as one of them, one of the real wolves. You can barely walk. Then it's a good thing my job doesn't require much walking, I said, too sharp, too bitter. The slap caught me off guard. Not hard, just enough to snap my head to the side, to make my cheek burn, to remind me exactly where I stood in the pack hierarchy, which was beneath everyone, even the brother who occasionally remembered I existed. Watch your tongue, Darius said, but there was no heat in it. Just tired resignation. I'm trying to help you. I don't want your help. The words came out hoarse. I don't want anything from you. Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But it was gone before I could name it, replaced by the cold mask he always wore around me. Fine. He turned toward the door, paused. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. For hitting me? For ignoring me? For being born to a mother who lived while mine died? Save your apologies, I said to his back. I learned to stop expecting them years ago. He left without another word. I stood there, pot in my raw hands, and told myself I was fine. That I was used to this. That the burning behind my eyes was just from the harsh soap, not from the slow, grinding weight of existing in a pack that saw me as less than nothing. My wolf stirred, restless and angry in my chest. She wanted to shift, to run, to fight back against every injustice we'd ever suffered. But I pushed her down, down, down into the dark place where I kept all my rage, all my hope, all the parts of me that still believed I could be more than this. Not yet, I told her silently. Not yet. In 6 hours, Alpha Cade Thornridge would return from his business in the Northern Territories. The pack would gather for the welcome ceremony. All the ranked wolves dressed fine, while the unranked like me huddled in the shadows, invisible. In 6 hours, I would see him again for the first time in 3 years. And in 6 hours, my life would shatter and remake itself into something I couldn't yet imagine. But first, I had floors to clean and pots to scrub and the slow, familiar work of making myself smaller, quieter, less. The work of surviving. Chapter 2. The Alpha Returns. The pack house blazed with light. I watched from my window in the servant quarters, a narrow room barely large enough for my cot and a small trunk, as wolves gathered in the courtyard below. Ranked members wore their finest, the betas and gammas in formal attire that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire life. The unmated females had dressed with particular care, their wolves riding close to the surface, making their eyes glow and their skin shimmer with barely contained power. Everyone knew Alpha Cade had been unmated for 28 years, and everyone wanted to be the one to change that. I should stay hidden. Thalia's orders had been clear, but something pulled at me, some instinct I didn't understand, making my wolf pace and whine inside my ribs. Go, she urged. We need to go. We need to stay invisible, I whispered back, but my hands were already moving, pulling on the only decent dress I owned, a simple, gray thing that hung loose on my too-thin frame. I couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten a full meal. Unmated, unranked wolves got the scraps, and there were rarely scraps to be had. I braided my dark hair, trying to tame the wild waves that had a mind of their own. My reflection in the cracked mirror showed someone I barely recognized. 2 sharp cheekbones, shadows under brown eyes that should have been gold, the scar on my throat standing out pale against my skin. Beautiful, I was not, but at least I was clean. The howl went up as I slipped down the back stairs. Alpha Cade had entered pack territory. My heart hammered. I told myself it was just adrenaline, just the natural response to an alpha's presence. It had nothing to do with the last time I'd seen him, 3 years ago when I'd been 20 and stupid and thought I could challenge for beta rank despite every warning, every whispered curse. Cade had been in the crowd that day, recently returned from abroad to claim his alpha title after his father's death. Our eyes had met across the training ring just before Thalia broke my ribs, and I'd seen something in his face I couldn't name. Something that made me fight harder, made me refuse to submit even when my body screamed for me to stay down. I'd lost consciousness, still struggling. Woke up 3 days later with healer Marin telling me I'd never be quite right again, that my wolf was too damaged to hold any rank, that I should be grateful to be alive at all. Cade had visited once, while I was still too weak to speak. Sat by my bedside for exactly 3 minutes, said nothing, then left. I hadn't seen him since. Now the courtyard pressed with bodies, wolves jostling for position, for visibility, for any chance to catch the alpha's attention. I edged along the periphery, staying in shadow, my wolf's urgency driving me forward even as my mind screamed to retreat. Then he was there. Cade Thornridge stood at the courtyard's center, and even in a crowd of powerful wolves, he commanded every eye. 6'4" and carved from granite and sin, with black hair and eyes the color of smoke, or maybe storm clouds, shifting gray that could turn silver or dark depending on his mood. He wore a simple black shirt and jeans. No need for formal wear when you were so clearly, undeniably alpha that the air itself bent around you. Power radiated off him in waves. The kind of power that made weaker wolves drop their eyes and bare their throats without thought. The kind that said, I could kill you all, but I choose not to. So be grateful. I should have looked away, should have lowered my gaze like every other unranked wolf. But my traitorous eyes stayed fixed on him, and maybe he felt the weight of my stare because his head turned. Our gazes locked. Everything stopped. The noise of the crowd faded to nothing. The press of bodies disappeared. There was only him, only those storm gray eyes widening with something that looked like recognition, like shock, like mate. The word slammed through me, my wolf howling it, claiming it, wrapping around the truth of it with desperate joy. Mate, mate, mate. No, that was impossible. I was cursed, broken, unmated, because no wolf would ever want someone like me. And he was alpha, chosen by bloodline and strength, destined for someone powerful and whole. And Cade's nostrils flared. He scented the air, scented me across 30 feet of distance and dozens of bodies between us. His eyes flashed silver. The pack noticed. One by one, wolves followed their alpha's gaze, heads turning toward the shadows, where I stood frozen, my heart trying to jackhammer out of my chest. Karis? Thalia's voice cut through the silence, sharp with disbelief. Why are you? But Cade was moving, cutting through the crowd like a knife through silk, and every wolf in his path scrambled aside, bowing their heads, clearing a path. To me. Run, some rational part of my brain urged. Run before this gets worse. But my feet had rooted to the stones, my wolf surging so close to the surface I could feel her trying to claw out, to meet our mate, to claim what was ours. Cade stopped 3 feet away. Up close, he was devastating. All sharp angles and barely leashed power, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow and another disappearing beneath his collar. Battle marks. Proof of strength. He stared at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve, his jaw tight, his hands flexing at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for me. You, he said, and his voice was gravel and smoke, sending shivers down my spine. How long have you known? Known what? That he was my mate? I'd known for exactly 30 seconds, since the moment our eyes met, and my whole world tilted sideways. My voice came out broken. I don't understand. His hand moved, lightning fast, catching my chin, tilting my face up. His thumb brushed the scar on my throat, and electricity sparked where he touched me, making us both inhale sharply. This, he growled. Who marked you? Marked? The scar wasn't a mark. It was my brother, I whispered. Darius. When I challenged for beta, he was trying to make me submit, but he nearly killed you. Cade's eyes had gone full silver now, his wolf pushing forward, dangerous and barely controlled. nearly killed what's mine. The courtyard erupted. Gasps, whispers. Thalia's voice rising above the others. Alpha, surely you don't mean... Get out! Cade didn't look away from me, but his command rolled over the pack like thunder. All of you, now! They fled, even Thalia, even the betas, even Darius, who I glimpsed at the crowd's edge, his face gone white with shock. They scattered like leaves before a storm, leaving only Cade and me in the courtyard, alone with the reality of what had just been revealed. I was the Alpha's mate. And from the way his hands shook where they held my face, from the raw need burning in his eyes, he'd been waiting for me far longer than I'd been waiting for him. How is this possible? I breathed. Cade's laugh was bitter, broken. I've been asking myself that for 3 years. Ever since the day I watched you nearly die in that ring and felt like my soul was being ripped from my chest. 3 years. He'd known for 3 years and said nothing. Anger sparked, hot and clean, cutting through the confusion. I jerked back from his touch and he let me go, though his hands dropped slowly, reluctantly. You knew, I said, the accusation sharp. You knew, and you left me here to keep you safe, he interrupted, his voice harsh. Do you have any idea what the pack would do if they knew? An Alpha's mate should be strong, powerful, from good bloodlines. Not cursed. I finished for him, the word tasting like ash. Not broken. Not the wolf everyone wishes had died at birth instead of her mother. Cade flinched like I'd struck him. Karis, don't! I held up a hand, surprised to find it steady. Don't you dare pity me. I've spent 23 years surviving this pack's hatred. I don't need yours, too. It's not pity. He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. It's never been pity. From the moment I saw you, He stopped, jaw working. I wanted to claim you, to tell the whole damn pack you were mine and deal with the consequences. But you were so young, so hurt, and I was brand new to being Alpha. I needed time to secure my position, to make changes, to create a place where you'd be safe and in the meantime, what? I should have been grateful you let me scrub floors and get beaten by wolves half as strong as me. No. The word came out ragged. No. You should have been cherished, protected, given everything you deserved. But His hands fisted. I made a mistake. I thought I was protecting you by waiting, by giving you space to grow stronger before binding you to me. I didn't need space. The words burst out, raw and real. I needed someone to choose me. Just once in my miserable life, I needed to be wanted. Silence fell between us, broken only by our harsh breathing and the distant sounds of the pack house settling for the night. Cade looked at me like I'd wounded him. You are wanted, Karis. By me. By my wolf. We've been half mad with it for 3 years, watching you from a distance, trying to keep you safe without anyone knowing. I finished quietly. Because being connected to me would damage your reputation. Because being connected to me would put a target on your back. His control snapped, power flooding the air, making me stagger. He caught me immediately, arms wrapping around me, and the touch of him was fire and ice and everything I'd been craving without knowing it. The wolves who oppose my leadership would use you against me, hurt you to weaken me, kill you to destroy me. I can't. His forehead dropped to mine, his breath ragged. I can't lose you before I've even had you. My wolf whined, wanting to submit, to accept, to sink into this male and let him carry our burdens. But I was more than my wolf. I was 23 years of surviving, of fighting, of refusing to break no matter how many times they tried to shatter me. So what happens now? I asked. You claim me publicly and hope your enemies don't notice? You hide me away for my protection, until you decide it's convenient to acknowledge what I am to you? No. His arms tightened. Now you let me make this right. You give me a chance to court you properly, To prove I'm worthy of you, not the other way around. I pulled back enough to search his face, found sincerity there, and something deeper, something that looked like the same bone-deep exhaustion I carried, the weariness of being strong for too long with no one to be weak with. We were both tired, both lonely, both terrified. I don't know how to be someone's mate, I admitted. I don't know how to be chosen. Then we'll learn together. His thumb traced my scarred throat again, gentle this time, reverent. Because you were always chosen, Karis. From the moment you opened your eyes in that ring and refused to quit, you were mine. I just didn't have the courage to claim you until now. Chapter 3. The Contract and the Promise. The packhouse conference room felt too small, with Cade pacing it like a caged animal. This is suicide, Beta Thalia's father, Gamma Marcus, my father, said flatly. He'd aged hard in the 3 years since I'd seen him last, his hair gone gray, his eyes cold where they avoided looking at me. Announcing her as your mate will destabilize everything. The Northern Packs already question your right to lead, and binding yourself to a cursed Omega. She's not an Omega, Cade's voice cut like a blade, and I don't recall asking for permission. Then you're not thinking with your head. This from Elder Willem, the Pack's oldest living member, his face a maze of wrinkles. The girl is weak, damaged. She bears her mother's curse, and enough. The single word from Cade dropped the temperature 10 degrees. Silver bled through his eyes as his wolf pushed forward, dominant and deadly. Speak about my mate that way again, Elder, and your long service to this pack won't save you from my displeasure. I stood in the corner of the room where I'd been told to wait, invisible again, while the pack leadership argued over my fate like I was an object to be negotiated. Some things never changed. Alpha Cade, Thalia's voice dripped false sweetness. Perhaps we could compromise? Keep the mate bond private for now. Let Karis remain in her current position until she's proven herself worthy of the title. Translation: keep me exactly where I was, scrubbing floors and staying silent, while they all pretended the bond didn't exist. Cade's laugh held no humor. And how, precisely, does one prove worthy of something they're born to? Should I have to prove I'm worthy of being alpha? Should you prove you're worthy of breathing? Thalia's face flushed. That's different. It's not. Cade stopped pacing, planted his hands on the conference table, and leaned forward. Every person in the room instinctively leaned back, submitting to the threat in his posture. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow night, during the full moon gathering, I will announce Karis as my mate. Anyone who has a problem with it can challenge me directly. I guarantee you won't enjoy the outcome. You can't be serious, my father started. I've never been more serious. Cade straightened, his gaze finding mine across the room. Unless the lady herself objects. Karis, his voice softened. This is your choice. I won't force the bond or the announcement if you don't want it. Every eye turned to me. I'd spent 23 years being invisible, being nobody, being the wolf they all wished would disappear. Now I could stay that way, safe in obscurity, free from the spotlight and the danger that came with being Alpha's mate. Or I could step into the light and probably get burned. My wolf had no doubts. She was already surging toward Cade, toward Pack, toward the belonging we'd craved our whole life. But I was more cautious, more scarred. And if I say yes? I asked, my voice stronger than I felt. What happens to me when your enemies come? When they try to use me against you? You said yourself I'd be a target. Then I'll destroy anyone who touches you. Simple, certain, terrifying in its sincerity. I should have done this 3 years ago. Should have claimed you in that ring, marked you in front of everyone, dared them to question it. I was a coward then. I won't be one now. You weren't a coward. The words surprised me. You were practical, smart, everything an alpha should be. everything except what you needed me to be. He moved toward me slowly, giving me space to retreat if I wanted. I didn't. I can't change the past, Karis. Can't undo 3 years of leaving you alone. But I can promise you this. From tonight forward, anyone who hurts you answers to me. Anyone who speaks against you challenges my authority. You will never be invisible again. It wasn't a romantic promise. It was a threat delivered to the room but meant for me. And God help me, it worked. Okay, I said. Okay? Cade stopped 2 feet away, hope and disbelief warring on his face. Announce it. Make me your mate. Let them all see. I lifted my chin, meeting his eyes. I've spent my whole life being afraid. I'm tired of it. If I'm going to be a target, at least I'll be a target that belongs somewhere. To someone. The smile that broke across Cade's face was devastating. Young and wild and free in a way I'd never seen him. Then he was kissing me. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative or careful, or any of the things a first kiss should be. It was claiming and desperate, and 3 years of pent-up need poured into the slide of his mouth against mine, his hands tangling in my hair, his body pressing me back against the wall as he devoured me like I was his last meal. I should have been embarrassed. We had an audience. We were in a conference room. This was wildly inappropriate for an alpha, and my wolf didn't care. She was singing, finally, meeting our mates skin to skin, taste to taste. Cade pulled back with a growl, resting his forehead against mine, both of us breathing hard. Tomorrow, he said roughly. Tomorrow I claim you properly, in front of everyone, under the moon. Tomorrow, I agreed. Someone cleared their throat. Right. We weren't alone. Cade turned, keeping me pressed against his side, his arm an iron band around my waist. His expression had gone cold again, all business. Any other objections? Silence answered him. Even Thalia, even my father, had sense enough not to push further. Good. Meeting dismissed. Karis stays with me tonight. The room emptied fast, wolves practically tripping over each other to leave. Only my father lingered at the door, his gaze finally landing on me. His daughter. The child he'd rejected at birth. You don't know what you're doing, he said quietly. The curse is just a story, Cade interrupted. A convenient excuse to blame a child for her mother's death. But if you'd like to continue spreading it, Marcus, I'm sure we can find a nice isolated territory where you can live out your days far from pack affairs. It was a banishment threat. Wolves didn't survive well alone. My father's jaw tightened. I'm trying to protect her. 23 years too late for that. I surprised myself by speaking. You want to protect me now? Start by never calling me cursed again. Something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. But it was gone before I could name it, replaced by resignation. As you wish. He nodded to Cade. Alpha. Then he was gone, and it was just Cade and me in the too quiet conference room, the weight of what we'd just committed to settling over us. You don't have to stay with me tonight, Cade said, though his grip on my waist tightened slightly. I know this is fast. Too fast. If you need space, I've had 23 years of space. I turned in his arms, looking up at him. I think I'm done with space. His eyes darkened. Karis. I'm not saying I'm not ready to... God, why was talking so hard? I just don't want to be alone tonight. Don't want to go back to that tiny room and lie awake wondering if this is real, or if I'll wake up tomorrow and find out it was all some cruel dream. It's real. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. More real than anything I've ever felt. And you won't wake up alone, I promise. Even if we're just sleeping, you're not alone anymore. Not alone anymore. The words hit somewhere deep, somewhere I'd locked away years ago. Show me, I whispered. Show me what it's like to be wanted. Cade's quarters occupied the entire top floor of the pack house, a space I'd cleaned 1,000 times but never truly seen. Now, as he led me inside, I noticed details I'd missed. The wall of windows overlooking pack territory, the shelves crammed with books, the scattered evidence of a man who lived alone but wished he didn't. "It's not much," he said, suddenly self-conscious. The mighty Alpha, nervous about his mate's opinion of his space. It was almost endearing. "It's enormous," I countered. "My room could fit in your closet." He winced. "About that, we need to talk about your living situation, and your position in the pack, and..." He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. "Everything. We need to talk about everything. Tomorrow." I kicked off my shoes, my feet aching after a full day on them. "Tonight, I just want to be. Can we do that?" "Yeah." He smiled, soft and real. "We can do that." Being, it turned out, involved Cade ordering dinner from the pack kitchen. Roast beef and vegetables that made my mouth water. I couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten anything that wasn't leftovers or scraps. Then sitting together on his couch while we ate in companionable silence. It should have been awkward. We barely knew each other. But the bond hummed between us, warm and certain, making everything feel easier than it should. "Can I ask you something?" I said after we'd finished eating. "Anything." "When you said you've known for 3 years, how? How did you know before I did?" Cade was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing absent patterns on my knee where my legs were tucked beside me. Finally, he spoke. "Alphas are different. More connected to the mate bond, maybe because we're meant to lead, to protect. The moment I saw you in that ring, everything in me screamed mine. Not just my wolf, me. Every cell, every breath. I looked at you and saw my future." He paused. "But you were so young, barely 20, fighting for a rank you shouldn't have needed to fight for, bleeding in the dirt, and all I wanted was to stop the challenge, to pull you out of there and never let anyone hurt you again. Why didn't you? Because you would have hated me for it." His gray eyes met mine, serious. "You were fighting for your dignity, for recognition. If I'd interfered, it would have proven what everyone said, that you were too weak to stand on your own. So I watched you nearly die, and every second of it carved itself into my soul." I thought about that day. The pain, the humiliation, the moment when Darius's claws had opened my throat, and I'd felt my life pouring out onto the packed earth. I'd wanted to quit so badly, but something had kept me fighting, some stubborn core that refused to break. "I saw you," I said slowly, "before I passed out. You were in the crowd, and our eyes met, and I thought you looked angry, like you blamed me for failing." "I was furious," he admitted, "but not at you. At myself, for not claiming you sooner. At the pack, for letting it happen. At Darius, for not pulling his strike. At the whole goddamn system that put you in that position." His hand tightened on my knee. "I visited you afterward. You were unconscious. Marin said you might not wake up." "But I did." "You did. And I told myself that was a sign. That I should wait. Give you time to heal, to grow stronger, to come into your own before binding you to me and all the complications that would bring." He laughed bitterly. "I convinced myself I was being noble, but really, I was just a coward." I shifted closer, resting my head against his shoulder. He was so warm, so solid. Real in a way nothing had felt real in years. "You're not a coward," I said. "You're here now. That's what matters." "Is it?" His arm came around me, pulling me tighter against his side. 3 years, Karis. 3 years I left you scrubbing floors and taking abuse from wolves who should have been bowing to you. How do I make that right?" "You can't." The words were gentle but honest. The past is done, but the future. I tilted my head to look up at him. "The future we can build together. If you're willing to be patient with me. I don't know how to be a mate, don't know how to be important to someone." "You've always been important." His fingers traced my jaw, feather-light. You just didn't know it. The kiss was softer this time, exploratory. Learning the shape of each other's mouths, the way we fit together, the spark that ignited wherever we touched. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing harder, Cade's eyes had gone silver again. "We should sleep," he said, voice rough, "before I forget how to be a gentleman." "What if I don't want you to be a gentleman?" His groan was pained. "You're killing me. We have time, Karis. I want to do this right. Court you, let you trust me before we—" He stopped, jaw working. "You deserve better than a rush." He was right. I knew he was right. But my wolf was whining, wanting to complete the bond, to be marked and claimed and his in every way that mattered. "Tomorrow," I said, echoing his words from earlier. "Tomorrow we figure everything out." "Tomorrow," he agreed. His bed was massive, covered in dark sheets that smelled like him, pine and steel and thunderstorms. He gave me one of his shirts to sleep in, then disappeared into the bathroom while I changed, giving me privacy I hadn't asked for but appreciated. When he emerged, he'd stripped to sleep pants that hung low on his hips, revealing a torso that was all muscle and scars and masculine beauty. I tried not to stare, failed miserably. "See something you like?" His grin was teasing, boyish. "Don't get cocky." Too late. But he climbed into bed beside me, careful to leave space between us. "How's this? Too close? Not close enough?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I've never shared a bed with anyone." Something fierce crossed his face. "No one will ever share your bed but me. You understand that? The moment I announce our bond tomorrow, you're mine. Exclusively, completely, forever." The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it sent heat curling through my belly. "Possessive much? When it comes to you? Absolutely." He rolled toward me, propping himself on one elbow. "Fair warning, I'm not going to be a laid-back mate. I'm going to be overbearing and protective, and probably drive you crazy with how much I worry. Good thing I'm stubborn, then." The stubbornest. His fingers traced my collarbone, following the line to where his shirt collar hid my scar. "Can I see it? The mark Darius gave you?" I hesitated, then unbuttoned the top of the shirt, pulling the fabric aside. The scar was raised, silvery white, 3 parallel lines from jaw to collarbone. Cade's expression went dark. "Dangerous. He'll pay for this," he said softly. "Not today, not tomorrow. But eventually, Darius will answer for putting his claws on what's mine. He's my brother. He's a male who tried to kill you." No room for argument in that tone. Blood doesn't excuse that. "Half-brother," I corrected, "and he was following orders, doing what he was supposed to do to make me submit. Orders can be refused. He chose to follow through." Cade's fingers traced the scar again, gentle despite his anger. "I want to mark you. Not here, where he did, but somewhere visible. Somewhere every wolf will see and know you're claimed." "Where?" His hand moved to my throat, just above where Darius's mark ended. "Here, over your pulse, so everyone knows your heart beats for me." The intimacy of it stole my breath. A marking wasn't just a claiming. It was a permanent bond, visible proof of belonging. Once marked, I'd be Alpha's mate in truth, not just in private. "Tomorrow," I whispered. "After the announcement. Mark me then." "Tomorrow," he agreed, but his eyes promised violence for anyone who questioned his choice. We settled into the bed, Cade pulling me against his chest, my back to his front. His arm wrapped around my waist, heavy and warm, anchoring me to reality. "Sleep," he murmured against my hair. "I've got you. No one's hurting you tonight." I should have been too wired to sleep, too aware of his body against mine, too anxious about tomorrow. But for the first time in 23 years, I felt safe, and I slept. Furries. Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the unfamiliar sensation of being warm. Not just physically warm, though Cade's body heat had kept me comfortable all night, but warm in a deeper way. Settled. Right. Cade was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. Creepy, I mumbled, voice rough with sleep. Beautiful, he countered. You talk in your sleep. Mortification flooded me. What did I say? Something about needing to clean the south wing and Thalia being cruel. His jaw tightened. Even in your dreams, they won't leave you alone. Old habits. I stretched, feeling joints pop and realign. My hip ached less than usual, probably because I'd spent the night in an actual bed instead of my lumpy cot. What time is it? Almost noon. I shot upright. Noon? I've missed. There's work to be done. The pack house needs... The pack house can wait. Cade's hand on my shoulder pressed me gently back down. You're not working today. Or tomorrow. Or any day after that, unless you choose to. I have to work. It's my job, my position. Your position as of last night is my mate. His voice brooked no argument. Which means you don't scrub floors or take orders from anyone except me. Understood? I wanted to argue, wanted to explain that I'd been working since I could walk, that I didn't know how to be idle, that without my work I was nothing. But the bond hummed between us, and I could feel his certainty, his absolute conviction that I was worth more than manual labor. I don't know what to do with myself, I admitted quietly, if I'm not working. Then we'll figure it out together. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Starting with breakfast. You're too thin. I'm fine. You're starving. Not angry, just matter of fact. When was the last time you ate a full meal? I couldn't remember. Weeks? Months? The unmated and unranked ate last, and by the time my turn came, there were usually only scraps. Cade's growl was low and dangerous. That ends today. Come on. He stood, pulling me with him. We're going to the kitchen, and you're eating until you can't move. The pack house kitchen at noon was a war zone. Cooks preparing lunch, servers rushing in and out, the organized chaos of feeding 200 wolves. The moment Cade walked in with me at his side, everything stopped. Head cook Marissa, a fierce older woman who'd always been kind to me in small ways, dropped the spoon she was holding. It clattered against the stone floor, loud in the sudden silence. Alpha, she managed, her gaze darting between us. How can we serve you? Feed my mate, Cade said simply. Everything she wants, as much as she wants. And from now on, Karis eats with the ranked wolves. No more scraps. The shock rippled through the kitchen staff. I could see questions forming, doubts, the same disbelief that had colored the elders' meeting last night. But Marissa just nodded, a slow smile spreading across her weathered face. About time someone saw sense. The girl's been half-starved for years. She turned to me, warmth in her eyes. Sit, child. Let me feed you properly for once. The meal she prepared was obscene. Fresh bread with real butter, eggs scrambled with cheese, bacon that was crispy and perfect, fruit that wasn't bruised or overripe. And when I'd cleaned my plate, she brought more. Cade watched me eat with satisfaction, occasionally stealing bites from my plate just to make me smile. It was domestic and easy and utterly surreal. Alpha? A tentative voice from the doorway. One of the younger wolves, barely past his first shift. The pack's gathering. Elder Willem said you requested everyone in the courtyard by sunset. I did. Cade's hand found mine under the table, squeezed gently. Tell them we'll be there. The young wolf scurried off, and reality crashed back in. Tonight. The announcement. The moment everything changed. Nervous? Cade asked. Terrified, I admitted. Good. Me too. He lifted my hand to his mouth, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. But we're doing this together, and anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me directly. Chapter 5. The Challenge. The full moon rose fat and silver over Thornridge territory, casting everything in stark relief. The entire pack had gathered in the courtyard, over 200 wolves packed tight, murmuring among themselves, the air thick with curiosity and speculation. I stood beside Cade on the raised platform where pack business was conducted, wearing a dress someone had delivered to his quarters that afternoon. It was simple, but elegant, deep blue that brought out the few gold flecks still visible in my mostly brown eyes. My hair hung loose, wild waves that refused to be tamed, and the scar on my throat stood out pale against my skin. I looked like exactly what I was, an unmated, unranked she-wolf who had no business standing beside the alpha. Cade, in contrast, looked every inch the leader, dark suit that emphasized his powerful build, authority radiating from him in waves. His hand rested possessively on the small of my back, a clear claim. The murmurs grew louder when they noticed his touch. Pack! Cade's voice cut through the noise, commanding instant silence. I've called you here tonight to make an announcement, one that some of you have been anticipating, and others dreading. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. 3 years ago, I returned from abroad to claim my alpha title. I was young, untested, and frankly not ready for the responsibility. But I learned. I grew. And I've led this pack to prosperity and strength unmatched in our history. Heads nodded. It was true. Under Cade's leadership, Thornridge had expanded its territory, increased its numbers, and earned respect from neighboring packs. But I've also made mistakes, Cade continued, the worst of which was denying something fundamental, something that should have been announced years ago. His hand tightened on my back, steadying. The moon blessed me with a mate 3 years ago, and like a coward, I kept her hidden, kept her suffering, allowed her to be treated as less than she is because I was too afraid of what acknowledging the bond would mean. The crowd erupted. Shouts, gasps, wolves surging forward trying to see who stood beside their alpha. Silence! The command cracked like thunder, enforced by Cade's power. Everyone froze. Her name is Karis Ashwin. You know her. Most of you have walked past her for years without truly seeing her. But she is mine. My mate, my equal, my future Luna. And anyone who questions this answers to me directly. The challenge was clear, explicit, unmistakable. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Thalia stepped forward, her face twisted with disbelief and rage. Alpha, you can't be serious. She's cursed, weak, unmated for a reason. She's unmated because I was a fool, Cade interrupted coldly. And she's only weak because this pack has spent 23 years grinding her down. But that ends tonight. I challenge. The voice came from the back of the crowd, male and familiar. Darius. My half-brother pushed through the packed wolves, his face set in hard lines. He stepped into the clearing before the platform, his eyes fixed on Cade. You challenge the mate bond. Cade's voice was deadly quiet. I challenge your judgment. Darius's gaze flicked to me, something complicated passing through his expression. If Karis is to be Luna, she must prove herself worthy. Pack law states that any wolf may challenge for rank. I invoke that right. A collective intake of breath. This was well within his rights. Any pack member could challenge for position, and Luna was the highest position a she-wolf could hold. But everyone knew what this really was. Darius giving the pack a way out. If I lost, Cade would be forced to reject the mate bond, or step down as alpha. If I won, well, no one thought I could win. I felt Cade tense beside me, felt his wolf surge forward, ready to end Darius where he stood. No, I said quietly, putting my hand on his arm. He's right. Karis, he's right, I repeated louder this time. If I'm going to be Luna, I need to prove I can stand on my own. I need to show the pack I'm more than... I swallowed. More than what they think I am. You don't have anything to prove. Cade's voice was rough with barely leashed violence. Yes, I do. I turned to face him fully, ignoring the crowd. To myself. If no one else, let me do this. His jaw worked. I could see the war in his eyes, alpha instinct to protect his mate battling against respect for my agency. Finally, he nodded. If he seriously injures you, I'm tearing out his throat. Fair enough. I turned to Darius, stepped to the edge of the platform. I accept your challenge. The fight ring had been set up in minutes, a simple circle of stones, blessed ground where wolves settled disputes. I stood at one edge, Darius at the other, while the pack pressed close, hungry for violence, for spectacle, for my failure. Marin appeared at my side, the healer's face grim. Karis, child, you don't have to do this. No one would blame you for I'm doing this. I stripped off the dress, standing in just a tank top and shorts. My body was lean from years of hard work, muscles defined but not bulky. Darius outweighed me by at least 50 pounds, and his wolf was pure strength. I was going to lose, but I was going to lose fighting. Marin sighed, pressed a small vial into my hand. Emergency healing tonic. If you're dying and can't shift to accelerate recovery, drink this. It'll buy you time. I pocketed it, met her eyes. Thank you for always being kind. You were always worth kindness. She squeezed my shoulder. Make them see it. Darius had shifted, his wolf massive and golden brown, scarred from countless battles. He stood 7 feet at the shoulder, pure predatory power. His eyes locked on me with something like regret. He didn't want to do this. But pack law was pack law, and public challenges couldn't be refused. I closed my eyes, reached for my wolf. She'd been restless all day, pacing and snarling, eager for this confrontation. Now she surged forward, and I let her. The shift hurt. It always hurt, ever since my first transformation went wrong at 7 years old. My bones broke and reformed imperfectly. My muscles tore and re-knit, and when I finally stood on 4 legs instead of 2, I was smaller than I should be. Weaker. My wolf was black as midnight, with those strange brown eyes that should have been gold. We were built for speed rather than power, lean and scarred, and half the size of Darius's wolf. The crowd murmured. I heard cursed and pathetic, and this will be over in seconds. They were probably right. Elder Willem stepped forward, his voice carrying across the courtyard. The challenge has been issued and accepted. This is a dominance fight. First blood ends it. Challenger Darius, do you swear to abide by the outcome? Darius's wolf nodded once. Challenged Karis, do you swear to abide by the outcome? I nodded. Then let the moon witness. The challenge begins now. Darius didn't wait. He lunged massive and fast, jaws snapping for my throat. I'd fought him before. Knew his patterns, his preferred attacks. So when he went high, I went low, sliding under his bulk and raking my claws across his exposed belly as I passed. First blood to me. The crowd roared. Darius spun, surprise flashing through his eyes. He'd expected me to run, to cower, to give up immediately like I had 3 years ago. But I'd spent 3 years watching, learning, understanding that my weakness was also my strength. I was small, yes, but I was fast, agile, and I'd learned to survive in a pack that wanted me dead, that made me more dangerous than any wolf who'd been coddled by rank and respect. Darius charged again, learning from his mistake, keeping low this time. His shoulder slammed into my ribs and I rolled, came up limping. Pain flared through my bad hip, the old injury screaming. I forced myself to ignore it. Pain was familiar. Pain was manageable. Darius circled, looking for an opening. I kept moving, staying mobile despite the limp. If he pinned me, this was over. He feinted left, went right, and his jaws closed on my back leg. I yelped, felt teeth scrape bone, tasted my own blood in the air, but instead of trying to pull away, I twisted toward him, going with the momentum, and sank my teeth into his ear. Tore hard. He released me with a howl. I scrambled back, my leg screaming but still functional. We were both bleeding now. The crowd was losing their minds, shouting encouragement to Darius, death threats to me, the bloodlust making them feral. Enough. Cade's voice cut through the chaos. He stood at the ring's edge, every line of his body vibrating with barely contained violence. Call it. First blood's been drawn on both sides. Call it a draw. No. Darius's wolf voice was rough but clear. She deserves to finish this. Let her prove herself completely. Prove myself. God, I was tired of having to prove I deserved to exist. But if this was what it took, then fine. I attacked this time, using speed to my advantage, darting in and out, leaving shallow cuts across Darius's flanks, his shoulders, his muzzle. Death by 1,000 cuts. It was the only way I could win. He was getting slower, bleeding from a dozen wounds, frustration making him sloppy. One more opening, one more chance. His paw caught me across the face. The world spun. I hit the ground hard, tasting blood, feeling my muzzle break with a sickening crack. My vision blurred. The crowd noise became distant, muffled. Through the haze, I saw Darius standing over me, his wolf massive and victorious. I'd lost. Again. Like I always lost. Like I'd always... No, my wolf snarled, furious. We'd survived 23 years of this pack trying to break us. We weren't done yet. I remembered Marin's vial, still tucked against my side, shifted just my front leg, just enough to grab it in my human hand, bite off the top, and pour it down my throat before shifting back. The effect was immediate. Healing magic flooded my system, knitting my broken muzzle, clearing my vision, giving me one last burst of strength. Darius didn't see it coming. He'd already turned away, assuming victory. I launched myself onto his back, sank my teeth into the scruff of his neck. Not the killing bite, but the submission hold. The same one he'd tried on me 3 years ago. And I held on. He bucked, trying to throw me off. I tightened my grip, felt his blood hot in my mouth, tasted victory and vengeance and something that felt dangerously close to forgiveness. Submit! I growled around my mouthful of fur and flesh. Brother, please, just submit. For endless seconds he fought. Then, slowly, his struggling ceased. His wolf collapsed to the ground, exposing his throat in the ultimate gesture of submission. I released him immediately, staggered back. The courtyard had gone completely silent. Elder Willem's voice sounded shocked. The challenged has won. The challenge is complete. Karis Ashwin has earned her place as... Luna, Cade finished, his voice carrying across the space. He vaulted over the ring's barrier, shifted mid-leap, his massive silver wolf landing beside my smaller black one. He nuzzled me gently, checking my injuries, then turned to face the pack. Anyone else want to question my mate's worthiness? Silence answered him. Then, one by one, wolves began to bow their heads. Submitting, accepting. I'd won. Chapter 6. The Marking. The pack house infirmary smelled like herbs and antiseptic. Marin worked on my injuries with practiced efficiency, tutting over my broken ribs and the deep bite in my leg. Foolish girl, she muttered, but there was pride in her voice. Taking on a wolf twice your size. I didn't have much choice. I winced as she applied a salve that burned like fire, but would speed healing. At least I won. You did more than win. Cade paced the small room like a caged animal, unable to settle while I was being tended to. He'd shifted back to human form, thrown on jeans, but his chest was still bare, and his wolf rode close to the surface, making his eyes flash silver with every breath. You showed the pack what you're made of. Showed them they were fools for underestimating you. I got lucky, I said honestly. If Darius had pressed harder at the end, but he didn't. Marin straightened, surveying her work. He chose to submit rather than risk killing you. That says something. It did. Darius could have kept fighting, could have used his size advantage to pin me and force my submission. But he'd yielded. Maybe there was still some brother left in him after all. "How's Darius?" I asked. "Being tended to by his mate," Marin said. "He'll live, though his pride might take longer to heal than his wounds." A knock at the door interrupted us. Cade actually growled at the interruption, but called, "Enter." My father stepped inside, and the air in the room immediately thickened with tension. Marcus Ashwin looked older than he had even yesterday, the lines on his face deeper, his shoulders bent under some invisible weight. His eyes, when they met mine, held something I'd never seen there before. Remorse. "Karis," he said, voice rough. "May I speak with you? Privately?" Cade moved between us instinctively, protective. "Anything you have to say to my mate, you can say in front of me." "Please," Marcus said, and the words sounded like it cost him. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I ask." I looked at Cade, saw the war in his expression. Finally, he nodded stiffly. 5 minutes. I'll be right outside. If you upset her, Marcus, Gamma or not, we're going to have problems." "Understood." Cade pressed a kiss to my forehead, lingered there a moment, then left. Marin followed, leaving my father and me alone in the herb-scented silence. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, seeming to struggle with where to begin. Finally, he said, "I watched you fight tonight. Watched you refuse to quit even when you should have. And I saw your mother in every movement. Her strength, her determination, her refusal to accept that she was less than anyone else." The mention of my mother, the woman I'd never known, made my throat tight. "Ilara was fierce," he continued, moving closer but keeping distance between us. "When we mated, I thought I was the luckiest wolf alive. She was beautiful and strong and had this light about her that made everyone around her better. Braver." He paused. "When she died bringing you into the world, I broke. I blamed you because it was easier than blaming fate or the moon or myself for not being strong enough to save her. You abandoned me," I said quietly, "from the moment I was born. I did. No excuses, no justifications. And I've regretted it every day since. But regret doesn't change the past, doesn't undo 23 years of neglect. So I'm not asking for forgiveness, Karis. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know your mother would have been proud of you tonight. And so am I, for whatever that's worth. It should have been worthless. After everything, his pride meant nothing. But something in me, some small child who'd always wanted her father's approval, softened slightly. "It's not enough," I said. "Saying you're proud now doesn't make up for all the times I needed you and you weren't there." "I know." But I took a breath. "Maybe it's a start. If you're willing to put in the work, to actually try to be a father instead of just a genetic donor." Hope flickered in his eyes. "I'd like that. If you'll let me. We'll see." I wasn't ready to forgive, wasn't sure I ever would be, but maybe, eventually, we could find some kind of peace. 5 minutes is up." He nodded, started to leave, then turned back. "The mark on your throat, Darius's mark. I ordered him to do it, to make you submit by any means necessary. I thought," he swallowed, "I thought if you were humiliated enough, you'd give up trying to be something you weren't. I was wrong. About everything. And I'm sorry." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with more questions than answers, and the strange, uncomfortable feeling of something shifting in my chest. Not quite forgiveness, but maybe the possibility of it, eventually. Cade returned immediately as if he'd been waiting right outside the door. His eyes scanned my face, looking for signs of distress. "I'm okay," I assured him. "Just processing." "Want to talk about it?" "Later." I stood, tested my weight on my injured leg. Marin's healing had worked well. I could walk without limping. Right now, I believe you promised me a marking. His eyes flashed silver. Here? Now? Unless you've changed your mind. Not a chance. He closed the distance between us, his hands cupping my face. But I need you to understand what this means. Once I mark you, you're mine forever. No walking away, no changing your mind. The bond will be complete and permanent. I know, and I did, the certainty of it settling deep in my bones. I want this, want you, want to belong to something, to someone, for the first time in my life. His kiss was desperate, claiming a promise of what was to come. When he pulled back, his breathing was ragged. Not here, he said roughly. Not in the infirmary. You deserve better. Somewhere private. Somewhere I can properly claim you without the whole damn pack listening in. Heat flooded through me at the implication. Your quarters? Our quarters now. But yes. He swept me into his arms despite my protests that I could walk. And I'm carrying you there because I can, and because my wolf won't settle until he knows you're safe in our den. Possessive, I muttered, but I wrapped my arms around his neck and let him carry me through the pack house. Wolves scattered before us, bowing their heads in respect. To me. To their new Luna. The weight of the title should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt right. Cade's quarters, our quarters, felt different now. Not just a space I'd cleaned 1,000 times, but home. He set me down gently on the bed, then stepped back, giving me space. Control. Tell me what you want, he said, voice low and rough. This is your choice, Karis. All of it. The marking, the mating bond, everything. I need to hear you say it. I met his eyes, saw the desperation there, the need warring with restraint. He was alpha, dominant and powerful, but he'd give me all the power here if I asked for it. I want you, I said simply. Want the bond. Want to be marked, claimed, yours in every way possible. I'm tired of being alone, Cade. Tired of being unwanted. You said I was always chosen. Let me feel it. Show me what it's like to belong to someone. The restraint snapped. He was on me in a heartbeat, mouth claiming mine with a hunger that stole my breath. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head back, and I opened for him. Let him devour me. Let myself drown in sensation and want and need. His mouth left mine, trailing hot kisses down my jaw to my throat, to the scar Darius had left. He paused there, and I felt him tremble with the effort of control. Here, he murmured against my skin. Right here, where he marked you with pain, I'll mark you with pleasure. Cover his claim with mine. Make you forget you ever belonged to anything but me. Yes. The word was barely a breath. His teeth scraped my pulse point, gentle, teasing. This will hurt. The marking always does. But after, you'll feel everything. My emotions, my wolf, the bond that ties us together. You'll never be alone again. I understand. My hands found his shoulders, gripped tight. Do it! The bite was sharp, sudden, his teeth sinking into the tender flesh over my pulse. Pain flared hot and bright, and I gasped, nails digging into his skin. Then the pain transformed. Heat flooded through me, starting at the bite and spreading outward in waves. I felt Cade, not just physically but emotionally. His love, fierce and protective. His desire, overwhelming and all-consuming. His wolf, recognizing mine, claiming mine, binding us together in ways that went beyond flesh and blood. The bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock, and suddenly I wasn't alone in my own head anymore. Cade was there, his presence warm and solid and right, anchoring me to something bigger than myself. He released the bite, licked the wound to seal it, then pulled back to look at his work. Satisfaction blazed in his eyes as he traced the new mark. His mark, sitting just above Darius's old scar. Mine, he growled. Finally, completely mine. Yours, I agreed, feeling the truth of it settle into my bones. The rest happened in a blur of sensation. Clothes discarded, skin on skin, learning the geography of each other's bodies with hands and mouths, and whispered promises. He was gentle despite his strength, patient despite his desperation. And when we finally came together, when the mating bond completed fully, I shattered into 1,000 pieces and reformed as someone new, someone whole, someone chosen. Later, much later, we lay tangled together in the moonlight streaming through the windows. My fingers traced the scars across his chest, mapping each one, learning his history written in healed wounds. "Tell me about this one," I murmured, touching a particularly nasty mark over his heart. "Challenge fight when I was 19. I lost." He captured my hand, brought it to his lips. "Learned an important lesson that day. Losing doesn't make you weak. Refusing to get back up does." "Is that why you let me fight Darius? Because you knew I needed to get back up?" "Partly." His arm tightened around me. "But mostly because I saw the look in your eyes, the determination. And I knew if I stopped you, you'd resent me for it. Better to let you fight and be ready to catch you if you fell. I almost did. Fall, I mean. But you didn't. You won. Against every odd, against everyone's expectations, you won." He rolled to face me, serious now. "You're stronger than you know, Karis. Stronger than I am in ways that matter." "That's not true." "It is." He pressed a finger to my lips, silencing my protest. "I was born to strength. Born alpha, trained for it, expected to lead. It was easy for me. But you? You were born to nothing, given nothing, and you survived anyway. Made yourself into something fierce and unbreakable, despite this pack's best efforts to destroy you. That's real strength." The words settled over me, warm and affirming. For the first time in my life, I let myself believe them. Maybe I was strong. Maybe I'd always been strong, and just needed someone to see it. "What happens now?" I asked. "With the pack, I mean. They accepted me tonight, but acceptance under duress isn't real acceptance," Cade finished. "I know. It'll take time. You'll have to prove yourself again and again until they forget you were ever anything but Luna. It's not fair, but it's reality. I can handle it." And I could. I'd handled 23 years of their hatred. Their grudging respect would be easy by comparison. "I know you can, but you won't have to handle it alone anymore." He pressed a kiss to my forehead, my nose, my lips. "Every challenge, every fight, every moment someone questions you, I'll be there. We face it together." Together. The word had never sounded so beautiful. Chapter 7. The Transformation. 7 years later. The smell of fresh bread wafted through the packhouse kitchen, mixing with lavender from the gardens and the sharp scent of pine from the forest beyond. I moved through the space with practiced ease, checking on the evening meal preparations, adjusting seasonings, directing the kitchen staff with gentle authority. So different from the terrified girl who'd scrubbed these same floors 7 years ago. "Luna Karis?" Young Maya, barely 18, approached with hesitant respect. "The Northern delegation has arrived. Alpha Cade asks that you join him in the conference room." "Thank you, Maya." I wiped my hands on a towel, checked my reflection in the polished copper hanging on the wall. The woman looking back was confident, poised, wearing her Luna title like she'd been born to it. The mark on my throat had faded to a elegant silvery pattern, Cade's claiming bite visible to anyone who looked. Over the years, I'd stopped hiding it. Now I wore it with pride. My wolf stirred contentedly in my chest. She was stronger now, healthier, fed and trained and respected. We'd never be the biggest or most powerful wolf in the pack, but we'd earned our place through cunning and determination and sheer, stubborn refusal to quit. The conference room held a dozen wolves, Cade at the head of the table, his betas flanking him. Thalia sat to his right, her expression carefully neutral. Over the years, she and I had reached an understanding. Not friendship, but mutual respect born from her grudging acknowledgement that I'd proven myself worthy. Darius occupied the seat to Cade's left, looking relaxed and content. After that challenge 7 years ago, something had shifted in our relationship. We'd never be close, but we'd found a kind of peace. His mate, a gentle Omega named Sarah, had helped with that. She'd quietly pushed him to make amends, to try to be the brother I'd needed. I slipped into the empty seat beside Cade. His hand immediately found mine under the table, squeezed gently. Even after 7 years, the bond between us thrummed strong and sure, a constant reminder that I was loved, wanted, chosen. Luna Keres. The Northern Alpha, a grizzled male named Rorik, inclined his head respectfully. We've heard impressive things about Thornridge's prosperity. They say your leadership has transformed this pack. Joint leadership, I corrected, gesturing to Cade. The Alpha and I work together. His strength, my strategy. Don't be modest, Cade said, that familiar warmth in his voice. Keres restructured our entire pack dynamic, established fair distribution of resources, created training programs for lower-ranked wolves, implemented conflict resolution protocols that have reduced challenge fights by 70%. This pack's success is as much hers as mine. Pride swelled in my chest. Those changes had taken years to implement, years of careful negotiation and patient persistence. But I'd done it. Transformed Thornridge from a pack that valued only brute strength to one that recognized strength came in many forms. Impressive, Rorik said. Which brings me to why we're here. Several of our young wolves are struggling, unranked, disconnected, feeling worthless. We've heard Thornridge runs programs for exactly this type of wolf. We'd like to send a delegation to learn from you. He was talking about wolves like I'd been. Broken, discarded, invisible, and he wanted me to help them. Of course, I said immediately. We'd be honored to share what we've learned. Though I should warn you, the changes aren't easy. They require the entire pack's commitment, from Alpha down to the lowest Omega. Half measures don't work. We're committed, Rorik assured me. Anything to help our struggling pack members find their place. As the meeting continued, discussing logistics and timelines, I felt Cade's pride through the bond. This was what we'd built together. A pack that didn't just tolerate its weakest members, but lifted them up, gave them purpose and dignity. A pack where no one had to feel invisible. That evening, Cade and I walked the packlands together, a routine we'd maintained since our mating. The forest was peaceful, moonlight filtering through the trees, casting everything in silver and shadow. You were magnificent today, Cade said, pulling me close, watching you lead, seeing the respect in Rorik's eyes. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of us. I leaned into his warmth. This pack is what it is because we both refuse to accept that strength only comes in one form. Speaking of strength, his hand moved to my stomach, rested there gently. How are you feeling? My breath caught. We'd been trying for a child for 2 years, with no success. The pack healers said my body had been too malnourished for too long. That conception would be difficult, if not impossible. But 3 days ago, I'd woken with a certainty in my bones. A knowing. I'm pregnant, I whispered. Cade went completely still. You're sure? I felt it, through the bond, through my wolf. There's life inside me. My hand covered his. Our child. The sound he made was half laugh, half sob. He dropped to his knees in front of me, wrapped his arms around my waist, pressed his face to my stomach. Thank you, he murmured. Thank you for surviving, for fighting, for choosing me, for giving me everything I never knew I needed. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I should be thanking you. You saw me when I was invisible, chose me when I was unwanted, loved me when I couldn't love myself. We saved each other, he said, standing, pulling me into a kiss that tasted like hope and promise, and forever. And we'll raise this child to know they're wanted, chosen, that their worth isn't determined by their rank or their strength, but by who they are inside. Yes, I agreed. We'll raise them better than we were raised. Break the cycle of pain and neglect. Create something new. As we stood there in the moonlight, wrapped in each other's arms, I thought about the biblical Jacob, how he'd worked 7 years for Rhea, then 7 more when he was tricked, never giving up on love despite betrayal and hardship. How he'd wrestled with an angel and been blessed for his perseverance. How he'd been renamed Israel, wrestles with God, because he refused to quit even when fighting the divine. I'd wrestled with my own demons for 23 years. Wrestled with rejection, with pain, with the crushing weight of being unwanted. And like Jacob, I'd emerged blessed. Not because I was special or deserving, but because I'd refused to quit. Refused to let the world break me. The she-wolf no one wanted had become the Luna everyone respected. The cursed child had become the pack's greatest asset. The invisible girl had become impossible to ignore. And it all started with surviving. With getting up one more time. With refusing to accept that my suffering defined my future. Chapter 8. The Birth and the Blessing. 9 months later, the pack house was in chaos. Breathe, love. Cade's voice was steady despite the terror I felt through our bond. Just breathe. I am breathing, I growled, gripping his hand hard enough to break bones. Another contraction rolled through me and I bit back a scream. This is the hardest thing you've ever done, Marin finished, checking my progress. And you're doing beautifully. Almost there, Karis. Almost there. The words my mother had probably heard before she died, bringing me into the world. Fear spiked sharp and cold. Marin, if something happens, if you have to choose... Nothing's happening, Cade interrupted fiercely. You're strong. You're healthy. You're going to survive this and meet our daughter. Daughter. The healers had confirmed it months ago. A she-wolf, strong and fierce, her heartbeat like thunder. I'm scared, I admitted. What if the curse... There is no curse. Marin's voice was firm. That was always a lie, Karis. Your mother died from complications, not from bringing you into the world. Her death wasn't your fault, and history isn't repeating itself. You hear me? Another contraction. Stronger. Closer. I need to push, I gasped. Then push, Marin commanded. Push and meet your daughter. So I did, pushed through pain that eclipsed anything I'd ever felt, pushed through fear and exhaustion, pushed with every ounce of strength I'd cultivated over 29 years of surviving. And then, crying. Not my crying. The baby's crying, loud and furious, and alive. She's here, Marin said, tears streaming down her weathered face. She's perfect. Karis, Cade, your daughter is here. They placed her on my chest, this tiny, squirming, impossibly beautiful thing. She had Cade's dark hair and my delicate bone structure, and when she opened her eyes, they were gold. True gold, like mine should have been. Like they'd been for 3 seconds after my birth before fading to brown. Her eyes, I whispered. Will probably change, Marin said. But for now, they're gold. Blessed by the moon. Cade was sobbing openly, his forehead pressed to mine, his hand cradling our daughter's tiny head. She's perfect. You're perfect. I love you both so much. What's her name? Marin asked gently. Cade and I had discussed this for months. We'd considered traditional names, family names, names with power and history. But in the end, there was only one choice. Rhea, I said. Rhea Alara Thornridge, Cade added, including my mother's name. So she knows where she comes from, and who loved her before she was even born. Rhea, my daughter, our daughter. The she-wolf who would grow up wanted, chosen, loved, without condition. The blessing I'd fought so hard to deserve. Epilogue. 7 years after Rhea's birth, the pack gathered in the courtyard for the anniversary celebration. 14 years since Cade had announced our bond. 14 years since I'd gone from invisible to indispensable. Rhea darted through the crowd, her dark braids flying, chasing after her younger brother Caleb with determined focus. At 7, she was already showing signs of the leader she'd become, fierce and compassionate in equal measure, with her father's strength and my strategic mind. Caleb, 5 years old and utterly fearless, laughed as he dodged his sister's attempts to catch him. They were beautiful together, these children of mine. Proof that love and determination could overcome any curse, any obstacle. "They're going to destroy something," Cade observed, amusement coloring his voice. "Probably." I leaned into him, comfortable in a way I'd never imagined possible 14 years ago. But they'll learn from it. Darius approached, Sarah and their 3 children in tow. My half-brother looked content, the hardness that had once defined him softened by family and time. "Sister," he greeted, the word coming easily now. "The pack looks good. Happy." They are happy. And they were. Thornridge had become a haven for wolves like I'd been. Broken, struggling, searching for belonging. We'd built something special here. Something worth protecting. Thalia joined us, her own mate beside her. We'd never be friends, she and I, but we'd become allies. Partners in pack leadership, united in our determination to make Thornridge strong. "Speech time," she said, nodding toward the raised platform. "The pack's waiting." I climbed the steps, Cade beside me as always, and looked out at the sea of faces. Some I'd known my whole life. Others were newer, drawn by stories of a pack that valued all its members. 14 years ago, I began, my voice carrying across the courtyard. I stood on this platform as an unwanted she-wolf, being claimed by an alpha who saw worth in me when no one else did. I was terrified, broken, convinced I'd never be enough. Silence. Every eye on me. But I was wrong. Not about being broken. I was broken. Years of neglect and abuse had shattered me in ways I didn't even recognize. But broken doesn't mean worthless. Broken things can be remade into something stronger, something beautiful, if given the chance. I paused, finding Rhea in the crowd. She was watching me with those gold eyes, absorbing every word. This pack gave me that chance. You gave me that chance. And in return, I've tried to build a place where no wolf ever feels invisible, where strength is measured not just in dominance fights, but in compassion, in resilience, in the courage to keep going when everything tells you to quit. Cade's hand found mine, squeezed. "I'm not special," I continued. "I'm not blessed or chosen by anything except my mate's love and my own stubborn refusal to accept that my suffering defined my worth. Every single one of you has that same strength inside you, the same ability to survive, to overcome, to transform pain into purpose." I looked at the younger wolves, the ones still finding their place. To those who feel invisible, I see you. To those who feel weak, you're stronger than you know. To those who think they'll never be enough, you already are. You just need to survive long enough to believe it. The applause started slowly, then built, rolling through the courtyard like thunder. Wolves howled their approval, the sound rising to the moon. Cade pulled me close, pressed his lips to my temple. "That was beautiful." "That was true," I corrected. Rhea pushed through the crowd, climbed the platform steps with the confidence of a she-wolf who'd never known doubt. She wrapped her arms around my waist, looked up with those impossible gold eyes. "Mama, when I grow up, will I be Luna like you?" I knelt to her level, cupped her face. "You'll be whatever you want to be, sweet girl. Luna, Beta, Alpha of your own pack. Or something entirely new. Your worth isn't determined by rank or title. It's determined by who you are inside. And you, Rhea, are already magnificent. Because I'm your daughter? Because you're yourself." I kissed her forehead. "Kind and fierce and stubborn and brave. That's all you need to be." She hugged me tight, and over her head I met Cade's eyes. saw the same overwhelming love I felt reflected back at me. We'd built this. Together. A pack, a family, a future where children like Rhea would never know what it felt like to be unwanted. Where the word cursed had been replaced with blessed. Where every wolf, regardless of rank or strength or birth, had value. The she-wolf who'd survived 23 years of pain had created something beautiful from her suffering. Had taken every scar, every wound, every moment of despair, and transformed it into purpose. Like the biblical Jacob, I'd wrestled with my demons and emerged blessed. Like Rhea, I'd been worth the wait. And like Thornridge Pack, I'd become stronger through surviving than I ever could have been without the struggle. The moon rose full and bright over our territory, casting everything in silver light. Somewhere in the forest, wolves ran free, embracing their wild nature. In the pack house, families gathered for the celebration, laughter and love filling every corner. And on the platform, surrounded by my mate, my children, my pack, I finally understood what it meant to be chosen. It meant choosing yourself. Every day. Every moment. Refusing to quit even when quitting seemed like the only option. It meant surviving. And I'd become very, very good at surviving. The end.